Everyone, Nick Hamilton, Nightcast Media. First of all, thank you for doing this. I wanted to ask you all, you guys have such a wide range of talent in this documentary, from Will to Angela Bassett to Jamie Foxx. You mentioned Denzel and Taraji. Why was it important for you all to showcase these wide ranges of talent, but also showcase the history of why it's important to be number one on the call sheet as well, especially as Black actors and actresses?
Right. Well, my career in filmmaking started in comedy, and comedy always doesn't get the respect that I think it deserves, right? And when Eddie did the whole thing about what De Niro does and what Jim Carrey does, it's all the same thing, and it's all hard. And I've talked to many actors and actresses who say, "Look, I do both, and the fact is, comedy's harder." So so I think that's just uh, I wanted to establish a baseline of respect. No matter what genre you work in, it's all great and challenging work. And yes, it was important for me to establish a timeline so we can have a historical context, like how did we get here and how have things changed and how have things opened up. And I mean, the net result is things are better than they've ever been. We've have a wider range of movies than ever before, uh, reaching the biggest audiences they've ever had with the biggest budgets they've ever had. So yes, we know that there's still work to be done, but it's very important that we acknowledge the success that we have had from decade to decade. Because if all you do is whine and complain, then you're a whiner. And how do you even measure success if you don't acknowledge it when it happens?
And you also wanted to see the whole range because, there's not one path to success in anything. And like to actually hear how everyone had a different story to get where they got, like, and to be who they are is really important because for us, like, it's conveying to a wider audience that, like, there's not one way to do this. There's not one way to do anything in life, and it's about the outcome. And sometimes you have to forge your own path, and that's what's really remarkable. Some of these actors and actresses really had to forge their own path, and it's refreshing to hear them talk about it, and to see, like, we didn't just come out fully formed. Like, it was a lot of bumps and bruises that went into this and making us who we are.
Yeah, also I would say also, Nick, I mean, you got to include them all because the thing they all have in common is that they are movie stars. So you can't make a movie about number one on the call sheet and not include all the number one on the call sheets, right? The other piece of it is every actor that dreams of being an actor, they always, whether it's conscious or not, like, if you ask people who their favorite actor is, they're gonna say a leading man. They're gonna say, "Oh, I saw De Niro in this, or I saw Denzel in this, or I saw Al Pacino in this, or Jamie in this." And so whether they ever achieve number one, these are the people that made them want to do what they want to do. You don't join the Lakers to not win the championship, So people don't make it to number one, but the goal is to make it to number one.
And the women are very aware of the history, in part because that is comforting and fortifying. Angela Bassett and various folks, Cicely Tyson, Earth Kitt, et cetera. I mean, Halle Berry and Dorothy Dandridge, right? And they knew their stuff. It wasn't just, and when I ask Halle Berry if she's familiar with Imitation of Life, she's like, of course. I didn't want to assume, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes, especially for the women, we assume that they're not so smart, that they're not so driven, that they're not so, it's not strategic, but they are all of those things. They're so much more impressive than we give them credit for, and that comes across in those press lines.
Well, thank you all for doing this. And again, excellent job to everyone. I think it needs to be showcased in colleges and universities. It needs to be a thesis taught on this.
That's the plan.
Okay, yep, up at Spelman College right now.